We should start, Alim, because the more the time for the stalwarts, the better.
Alim, start.
Yeah. So, thank you everyone for joining. Welcome all of you. Welcome to this 13th edition of Thursday Musings. So the rules are simple. Everyone will be on mute mode except for the speaker. The meeting will be recorded and will be available later on. And next slide, please. So I'd like to welcome Captain of the ship, Professor Tufan Pati sir. He is from Cuttack. Everyone knows him very well. So I think Tufan sir, over to you.
Thank you, Alim. And I have the privilege to welcome to today's Thursday Musings our moderators, Dr. Alim Siddiqui and Dr. Amit Singh Anway, Amrit Parjoshi Anway, and both of them are members of the Executive Council of Indian Psychiatric Society and very active, very vibrant, very conspicuous and well known. And they're the brain behind, they're the inspirations behind, and they're very much supportive to me. I welcome them. And with this, I welcome our chairpersons, Dr. Pramod Kumar. And Dr. Pramod Kumar is Honorary Secretary of Indian Association of Private Psychiatry. He is a fellow of many associations like IPS, IAPP, WPA, American Psychiatric Association, and International Organization of Psychological Medicine. He has received many awards. The three important ones are the Bakshi Award in the year 1998. And in the 2013, he won the honor of being the Indian Ambassador to the American Psychiatric Association. 2014, he was awarded the International Fellowship by APA. He is member of Chandigarh State Mental Health Authority and working as advisor to many CME activities. Publications, he has got many publications. His website is given. He is a very important, well-known and popular practitioner. And Dr. Pramod Kumar, welcome, and he's an authority on this subject. Next page. I welcome Dr. Suresh Badamat. Dr. Suresh Badamat is very much well known to all of us. He is additional qualification is that he is PhD in law from the NLS of Bangalore, and he is a faculty there also. He is currently professor and HOD of Telemedicine Center and head of the Forensic Psychiatry Services and consultant in Community Psychiatry, all three together. He is affiliated to Department of Psychiatry in NIMHANS, Bangalore. He is a visiting faculty of NLS, and he is State Human Rights Commission and Karnataka Indian Judicial Academy, Bangalore. He has got 272 scientific articles. He has received many awards, Professor Raghuram's Distinguished Young Teacher Award and Dr. C.V. Raman Young Scientist Award from the government of Karnataka. He is member of the following committees and institutes by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, that is Central Rules Drafting Committee for Mental Health Care Act and Task Force for Mental Health Care in the rural primary mental health. We have got such stalwarts in here, and we have got another stalwart our speaker, my dear younger brother Rajesh, and I hand over the mic, I hand over the stage to the chairpersons. Please take over and carry on. I don't want to come in the way. Over to chairperson.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And I just please confirm, am I audible and visible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
please go ahead, sir.
Okay. So, Suresh, should I introduce the first part of the...
Yes, sir. Please introduce Dr. Nagpal, sir, please.
Okay, sir. So, Dr. Nagpal is a, you can say he's a authority in psychiatry, and almost everybody knows him all over India and at many international places. He's a postgraduate from Chandigarh, PGIMR Chandigarh, and he is not only a consultant psychiatrist, he's a partner director to Sarvam, very popular rehab centers in India, and then trustee to Deva Foundation. You can say he's a fellow member of almost all the organization you can think of, beginning from IPS to IAPP to WPA to International Psychological Medicine, then bioethics. He's there everywhere. And there is no place where you see his absence. He's a pure academician in the sense, because he deliver a good amount of presentations. So he's a clinician, he's a teacher, and he's a researcher. And he has held many top positions like the past president of IAPP, then IABP, then past president of Society of Bipolar Disorder. This particular area of psychotherapy, in fact, I'm in practice for 2 decades. And when I joined psychiatry in Chandigarh, and he was my senior, I never met him at that time, but his name was very much recognized in the institute in Chandigarh. And he has always been a very, very popular practitioner. And I think this particular topic which is being given to him is very good. And he's the best authority on that. Thank you very much. Now over to Dr. Suresh.
Yeah, only one sentence I would like to tell. Dr. Rajesh Nagpal is a genius, passionate, scientifically devoted person. When he speaks, he puts his heart into it. So welcome, sir, Dr. Rajesh Nagpal. Over to you, sir. The podium is for you.
Thank you, sir.
All the best, sir.
I am very fortunate, in fact, blessed to have 2 chairpersons, one an authority on teletherapy guidelines and the other a foremost practitioner of guidelines. So both the guidelines have been authored by Suresh Badamat and of course others from NEMANS. And it's a very proud moment for me to be part of this team. The topic chosen is digital psychotherapy, navigating the legal and logistical maze. This is a teaser of sorts. A disclaimer. Disclosure is no financial gain accrued from Torrent Pharmaceuticals or IPS for the presentation, but though I wish there was a financial gain, of course. This presentation has been peer reviewed by my valued colleague, Dr. Sunil Mittal. Musings are a personal journey for exhibition. During the inter-COVID period likely to last 2 years, I am only providing digital psychotherapy and face-to-face consultation, a hybrid model. I have used DBT, REBT, CBT, and MNJ Sensate Focus in digital format in the last 3 months. I have not yet done group therapy using a TA format. Preferred vehicle is WhatsApp audio and video call. Telemedicine practice guidelines are here to stay beyond the intra-COVID period.
Dr. Nagpal, your voice is becoming lower. Can you, yes.
Audio
Earlier
is low,
was
sir.
good. Now it's okay.
Counseling or common sense advice is not telepsychotherapy.
It is right, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Telepsychiatry operational guidelines, Badamat et al. Uses the following words interoperability: teletherapy, telepsychotherapy, and telecounseling. Most of us in the field of psychotherapy, having been trained by stalwarts like Dr. V.K. Verma and others, believe the Woolberg definition of 1967 is still the best. Psychotherapy is a treatment by psychological means of a problem of emotional nature in which a trained person deliberately establishes professional relationship with the patient with the object of removing, modifying, or retarding existing symptoms, mediating disturbed patterns of behavior, and promoting positive personality growth and development. I would recommend the entire audience and beyond 2 essential readings for this seminar and beyond, both of them authored by our chairperson, Dr. Suresh Badamat, Telemedicine Practice Guide in 2020 and Telepsychiatry Operation Guide in 2020. So first I will cover the legal maze. Telemedicine Practice Guidelines have a statutory basis. I mention this because lawyers are often saying that these are guidelines, they don't have anything in the statute, but no, this has statutory basis. The Telemedicine Practice Guidelines are included in Appendix 5 of the Indian Medical Council Professional Conduct, Etiquette and Ethics Regulation 2002. So it's part of the statute now. The other aspect is that digital psychotherapy as a service is now regulated. To enable psychiatrists to render digital psychotherapy, we need to comply with the licensure laws by enrolling in the state medical register or the Indian Medical Register under the Indian Medical Council Act 1956. Most of us have registered. As a follow-up, since it's only come this year, all psychiatrists intending to provide online consultation need to complete a mandatory online course within 3 years of its notification by the Board of Governors. This is a controversial clause, but an interesting clause. Now I bring the concept of teletherapy forward. So in COVID time, physical distance is a critical factor. So it says very clearly, telemedicine, the delivery of healthcare services where distance is a critical factor. By all healthcare professionals using information and communication technologies for the exchange of valid information for diagnosis, treatment, prevention of disease. The point is, of course, telemedicine is meant where you cannot communicate with the patient face to face because the patient is very far away, unable to come. But in the COVID situation, physical distance, maintaining a physical distance is a very primary factor, which can be a problem in psychotherapy. Then isn't psychotherapy facilitation of health? So the delivery and facilitation of health and health-related services, including medical care. So this amounts to psychotherapy. Hence, we are including teletherapy in telemedicine. Now, I do not render psychotherapy in my clinic in the COVID period in my clinic because there is sufficient evidence from Aaron Bromwich and others that anyone spending greater than 10 minutes with a face-to-face situation is potentially infected. Anyone who shares a space with you, say an office for an extended period, is potentially infected. So even if I have a fan blowing on me, an air conditioner with the window on, and even if I have N95 mask and a shield and a window open and the exhaust fan blowing, even then, Association of Physicians India recommend time no greater than 30 minutes in the same room. So you cannot render therapy in less than 30 minutes. Hence, it is important and essential for us as psychiatrists to render it only in the digital format in the intra-COVID period, which is now. Then the question that I have for the audience is that a clinical psychologist render teletherapy. I'll explain to you why it is not. It might be controversial, but digital psychotherapy is regulated. The service provider is now defined. Telemedicine is used to denote a clinical service delivered by a registered medical practitioner. And the registered medical practitioner is a person who's enrolled in the state medical register or the Indian medical register under the Indian Medical Council Act 1956. Can a mental health professional of alternative pathy render digital psychotherapy? So mental health professional defined the MHCA, the PG Ayurveda, Homeopathy, Unani Siddha is an RMP, therefore permitted by law to render digital psychotherapy. However, I might mention here, guidelines for Ayurveda, Unani and Homeopathy are copy-paste from these guidelines. An anomalous situation where the untrained RMP can render a digital psychotherapy. The other question that we can also ask ourselves is that is the psychiatrist trained in psychotherapy? How many and where? According to Woolberg definition, anybody can be trained. So it's a question which hangs out in the open. But as of today, to my mind, psychologists are not permitted to practice telepsychotherapy. So registered medical practitioner entitled to provide telemedicine consultation in any part of India, and patient can consult with an RMP for diagnosis treatment. This is part of the statute itself, 14223 point. So now the question comes that are online platforms like Practo, Therapo, etc., providing digital psychotherapy in conflict with the law? Prima facie, yes, would require to be tested in the courts. The service is regulated, the service provider is defined as an RMP. By that logic, the act of providing the digital psychotherapy by postgraduates in psychology and registered clinical psychologists defined in MSc 2017 is in contravention of this law. The second point I raise in the legal maze is confidentiality. In the operating guideline, Dr. Suresh Badamat has compiled Appendix 3, which is basically copied from the MHCA, but minimum basic standard guidelines for documentation of teletherapy, telecounseling. This pro forma needs to be filled by the consulting psychiatrist and will be filled in the patient's medical record, telepsychiatry operation guidelines. I would add here, you put a disclaimer in the contract itself. You must inform the patients about the threat to confidentiality due to transmission of information through electronic as well as procedures being used to protect confidentiality. So we know that even if I use a WhatsApp, somebody can use an alternate camera and record it. So that needs to be told to the patient. That possibility always exists. Also, I would suggest to Dr. Suresh Badamat and the others that add the free component of transfer mode in the same consent form like I am doing. The question that I have is, what if the client records and shares? Electronic recording, as I said, can be shared at a click of a button. Recording allegations and reporting to the MCI, MHA, police and media is not unknown. Happened in the capitals of Telangana recently, and which we had to face a lot of problems with. Questionable skills, our skills can also be exposed of incompetence and sometimes unethical behavior. Guidelines and actual practice. Now, these are guidelines, guidelines which are, so the first part is what is part of the guideline. I mentioned that all communications, electronic and non-electronic, therapeutic and non-therapeutic, synchronous, asynchronous between psychiatrist and patient shall be documented and filed in the patient record, similar to traditional record keeping policies and procedures. The psychiatrist will document the basic medical record therapy notes as per Mental Health Care Act 2017, section 25. I do not record the session in electronic format. I merely take case note sessions the conventional way in psychotherapy, the way I've been trained. How does one provide confidentiality? Enough anecdotal data of how both the therapist and client can misuse information provided during psychotherapy for their own selfish ends. People have been known to blackmail therapist, the client, client, the therapist. This evidence is used primarily to record a conversation between client and the therapist. A small anecdote from my own life. About 25 years ago, I was using clozapine for a child who was about 12 years old. And the father, I explained to the father that there is no data. Data was till 16 years and not till 12 years. But I said, I'm doing it because I'm at my wit's end now. And he recorded the piece of conversation on a small pen camera, a pen microphone which he had. And later on, he wanted to play it in the court of law to say that I was contravening the law by using clozapine for a child aged 12 years. It took a lot of work to undo the damage. So I make a case for WhatsApp video audio. I do not make a case for Zoom or Google Meet because cannot be recorded on the phone device automatically since it's encrypted. I'm aware that there is an app in the market which can help you record it, or one can use other devices simultaneously to record it. But Google Meet and Zoom have inbuilt provisions for recording, as we see even in this program or presentation. Now, my question to the audience and to the chairpersons is, guidelines meticulously drafted are now part of the statute. Ultimately, they are guidelines. Will they stand the scrutiny of the law is a question which begets an answer in the future. I come now to the logistical maze. One face-to-face meeting is a prerequisite. And the digital operating guidelines state very clearly, a detailed in-person psychiatric assessment needs to be carried out before initiating teletherapy. I do not render therapy online to those who only want digital mode. I have a face-to-face meeting, draw up a simple contract defining the number of sessions, approximately, fee, mode of transfer, confidential format, the same format as in Appendix 3 with 2 additions of fee as well as the other aspect about confidentiality. This excludes outstation patients who have never come in for treatment. So top is the guideline and down is what I'm doing. A costly mistake which I encountered in the pre-POXO area. I once rendered teletherapy to a young adolescent without a face-to-face meeting. In the first meeting, she shared details of sexual abuse in the past. When I wanted to introduce the caregiver, she abruptly called off. Since medium was electronic, the matter was not pursued. This was pre-POXO era. In the post-POXO era, the client reports sexual abuse, which entails mandatory POXO reporting. Later, client can deny reporting. Hence, the question for the audience is, should we record all conversations to protect ourselves? Conundrum in today's age of young, confident adults. I'm sure all of you see a lot of them with externalizing data disorders. Depending on the patient's psychiatric and mental status conditions, the guidelines state psychiatrist needs to decide if family member is to be allowed during teletherapy sessions or not. As a general rule, I do not conduct therapy without being introduced to an appropriate caregiver. If it's a minor, it's a parent. If it's a wife, it's a husband. If it is a young boy, it is either a parent or elder brother who's of major age, elder sister or brother. Why? common experience. We have all had our share of jealous husbands, overprotective fathers, paranoid mothers. Especially in the case of a young married girl, I essentially involve her parents or brother before any psychological intervention, including testing. Born out of experience. Now I come to the not so little things. Please do maintain professionalism with regard to appointment, dressing, duration, timings of therapy, and privacy during teletherapy sessions. A senior psychiatrist was told by a female psychology colleague about a client who flashed. He went to the toilet carrying his laptop and suddenly the organ came in full view. He, of course, apologized insincerely, unquote. The elephant in the room. We do not know who else is in the room. In teleconsultations, I invariably ask the client that I would like to speak to the spouse. 9 times out of 10, an embarrassed spouse speaks in the camera immediately. These guidelines are for our protection. So follow them, and I'll tell you why they're for protection. The tele guidelines, which have been operated by Dr. Surya Badamat and others, say the psychiatrist should exercise their professional judgment to decide whether a teletherapy consultation is appropriate in a given situation, or any person therapy needed, or referred, or stop completely interest of patients. The psychiatrist can choose not to proceed with a teletherapy consultation anytime. At any step, the psychiatrist may refer or request for an in-person therapy consultation. At any stage, the patient has the right to choose to discontinue teletherapy sessions or consultations. This was reported by a senior psychologist from Delhi. A young psychologist during teletherapy was confronted with a young boy determined to commit suicide. He said, "I will do suicide in front of you." That means the young psychologist pleaded with him in vain. He just kept threatening me repeatedly. Ultimately, I shut down my phone and waited in dread. If he had committed suicide and it became part of the media circuit, I could be sued for abetment. Sorry for the apostrophe. It didn't happen, thankfully. But that's the risk you run in teletherapy. I end now with musings. Therapeutic connect. The kind of therapy one does is less important than the therapeutic connect. A euphemism for transference or countertransference. In digital format, after the first few minutes, I, with mutual consent, shift to audio mode. In my own limited experience, usually catharsis starts then. In a directive mode therapy like the REBT, I use the visual mode alone, where my emphasis and my verbal and my hand skills are extremely important. And I have to use manuals and paper and pen. Silences in therapy. Some of us who are trained in psychodynamic-oriented psychotherapy, in the digital format, especially audio, the long silences which punctuate non-directed therapy is mistaken for the therapist switching off or the client doing multitasking, and the echo, "Hello, hello, are you there?" often reverberates. Sorry for the spelling mistake. In the not too distant future, artificial intelligence and psychotherapy, bots doing psychotherapy, doing therapy. I have already seen in Japan bots doing therapy for dementia patients. Cyborgs rendering psychotherapy. Pre-recorded sessions for some conditions are required. For example, in anxiety and phobias. Remote control exposures, ERP for phobias is a possibility through teletherapy. Mind control. The media and some news anchors do it. The hoodinut in the Death of the Science Star recently made waves. Waking up to the Orwellian dreams of 1984, coming alive in 2024 with the social media, Instagram, Facebook, and whatnot. Welcome to Huxley's Brave New World. Qualities of the therapist for doing digital psychotherapy. His or her ease with digital interface, familiar with nuances of privacy and professionalism, and able to make a therapeutic connect in a digital format. This is a tricky one. How familiar are we with the digital format? How comfortable we are, especially for sensate focus M&J. I found that your ability to connect, ability to speak the words having a sexual content with a deadpan face, ability to communicate an ability to feel comfortable. The patient is very sensitive to you, to your own images, requires a lot of work initially. Qualities of the client for psychotherapy: psychological sophistication, that means the ability of the patient to understand things in psychological terms, ease of use of digital interface. Anytime we will send a Zoom link to somebody and he or she won't know how to operate Zoom link, and we are stuck again with the WhatsApp. And of course, more importantly, he or she wants therapy. Another parting shot: guidelines can at best be described as expert consent guidelines with all the known advantages and shortcomings. As someone once said of the corona, and I find its applicability in telepsychiatric guidelines, we mental health professionals are in the same storm, but in different boats, unquote. So let us customize and strengthen our boat. I made a short presentation so that we have lots of time for discussion. Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Rajesh Nagpal. Now we have plenty of time for discussion, like he has just told. Let me see how there are. So there is one question which has repeatedly being asked, and in different presentation, what is the legal status of telepsychiatry? I think Dr. Suresh is the expert on that field, and I think I'll pass on this question to him, and he can give the best answer to this.
Yeah, see, first is telemedicine. There is no doubt telemedicine practice guidelines, it's a part of a law. So that is going to be part of the law. Coming to telepsychiatry operational guidelines was basically written to bridge the gap between telemedicine practice guidelines and Mental Health Care Act, so that where we can operate in the gray area. To fill the gray area, we have done that. And what is the standing? It's a standing of more of a clinical practice guideline, similar to that actually. If we have written schizophrenia practice guidelines, what is the standing in the court of law? If they say you have done ABCD, on what basis you have done? So then you say this is the Indian Psychiatric Society, Telemedicine Society of India, and the NIMANS joined together, came out of the publication. So this is a practice guidelines. So that can be presented in the court of law, telling that it has been published. It has its own merits and demerits. That is the way it is. It's a more of clinical in nature, and it gives you a guide towards in the gray area. It's not a law by itself, but if you allow me to express how it is interpreted in the court of law. Suppose if there is something goes wrong, the best case I can ask you is the lady who said that somebody was threatening, Dr. Rajesh Nagpal said, see, he was threatening to her to something, and she was telling don't commit suicide. By chance, she switched off the phone, he committed suicide. And she was worried that it is an abatement. Can it be an abatement? This is the question which usually arises. Now, in clinical practice guidelines, in a scenario like this, we have a scenario now, and if the person has committed suicide, so what is the telepsychiatry operational guidelines will say? The doctor has all the right to say at this point of time, the therapy cannot be done because it's an emergency. You please go and meet somebody. If she had told that there is no issue, no abatement will be falling on her face or on her, and then she will be able to walk away without any legal implication, maybe maximum questioning. Apart from that, nothing will happen. So that kind of what we call it as gray area, and bringing Mental Health Care Act along with the telemedicine practice guidelines, this telepsychiatry operational guidelines was written. And this can be amended n number of times because it is within the purview of Indian Psychiatric Society, NIMANS, and Telemedicine Society of India. We can sit and again modify further, telling that no, sir, this area can be done. And so that is the way it goes on. So the legal standing it doesn't have, clinical standing it has. So any further question, I would happy to answer that question. But however, if it is in the court of law, if it goes there, the clinical practice guideline is an evidence, one of the evidence, telling that yes, I am followed this guidelines, which is accepted by so and so people. Okay. Hope I answered your question, Pramod sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I think
so. I think this question will first case which we have just read in the newspaper about that cardiologist from Delhi, wherein the FIR was registered under telemedicine guidelines. Okay, that was the first case which we have seen. But as far as my experience and my knowledge goes, see, if there are guidelines of any kind, aspect, so I always take them as a law, whether they are law or they are not a law. But it is always give me a kind of a framework that I should work within that framework itself. Because if anything goes wrong, I'm 100% sure and certain that these will definitely come into place in the law. And if you have followed the rules of those guidelines, definitely you can have a better defense for yourself. So this is whether it is for like Dr. Rajesh Nabal saying about clozapine, for example. And if we use any drug as of now for any condition which is not mentioned anywhere, not even in the guidelines, then you are in a problem. Then you have to have a kind of a strong defense for that. Otherwise, if it is in the guidelines and you have used it by whether it's a international or national, if we look at the tele-psychiatry guidelines, in India, it has come just now. You are the one who brought it very recently, March, then in May. But I'm a practitioner of teleconsultation for more than 2 decades now, ever since I've started my practice. So what I believe is that, and I have been following the telepsychiatry guidelines of American psychiatric associations, which were being followed by most part of the world. And so what has changed all these in 2 decades for me, it is the format which has changed. It is the communication pattern which has changed. Earlier it was a email communication. Today it's a very easy mobile communication. But I think the rest of the dimension, domains, risks and everything remains the same.
Yeah.
So I think
yes. So there is a question for Dr. Suresh again. NIMHANS has published telepsychotherapy guidelines for clinical psychologists. What would you say about that?
Yeah. If you permit me, I will just show the guidelines on online. I'm sharing the screen now.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is the guidelines which was released by the clinical this is by clinical psychologists. The Department of Clinical Psychology released on April 2020. It was again reviewed by our team and also the various faculty members of clinical psychology, Kalpana Srivatsav and Kiran Rao, Alia Raghuram. See, it's also almost goes with the telemedicine guidelines. Like for example, if somebody has to therapy has to be started. If you look at this, it's like a already, because they allow even for a online intake, and here, but they say that online assessment, please avoid it as much as possible. Do the in-person assessment. Once the assessment is done, and if you are giving a pre-registered client who is coming, immediately first and the foremost is you take the consent and assess for emergency. If there is any emergency, first is no, this person is not suitable for in-person, sorry, tele-psychotherapy. He will go for in-person. No, he is suitable. They will be assessing him, and any point of time they feel there is an emergency, he will be referred back to maybe psychiatrist or emergency services. So every session will start with the consent, assessment of requirement of emergency, and then even during the process of therapy, if they feel that there is an emergency, the sessions will be aborted. And the sessions can be aborted either by the therapist or by the client anytime without even giving a reason, telling them this you require in-person therapy. That is the way it has been clearly formed, and how the discontinue is to be done, termination is done. So each session, there is a clear guidelines has been written. This is for clinical psychologists, and we are following telepsychotherapy actually. That is basically we follow telepsychiatry guidelines. This is for clinical psychologists. So this is well within the ambit of the clinical psychologist, because RCA has not yet vetted this telepsychiatry guidelines, telepsychotherapy guidelines, because a copy has been sent and still they are reviewing. Once the RCA vets it, it becomes part for them to be a legal mandate. It becomes, otherwise it's still a clinical guidelines for the psychotherapist. So this is the guideline which is available online. If you type telepsychotherapy, it is mentioned. But the issue in this telepsychotherapy is we have not addressed the family therapy. The reason being is there may be 4 or 5 people, and one of them may come and ask, give me the records when you're doing family therapy. So that time you have to be very careful, and that's the one issue. And if you are doing couple therapy, sexual issues are discussed. Then should we have a male and a female therapist? On the other side, male and a female therapist, female, the couple are there. Should we do it or not? That's one issue we have not addressed. So these group therapy or family therapy breaks the confidentiality, the issue of medical records, who will get the records, who will not get the records. The husband says, don't give me the records, or he may say, you keep my record separately. If the wife has told something, you keep the record separately. Or is it a single record, like the way we do in-person consultation? Those are the nitty-gritties we were unable to answer. So family therapy has been kept out of this telepsychotherapy guidelines, basically because of these issues of who will enter the therapy, who will not enter the therapy. Those are the issues have been considered. But one more interesting thing which I would like to bring in, which Dr. Nagpal has told about, is the issue of what we call it as the confidentiality, which it's a beautifully has been discussed in Aadhaar card, what we call it as Aadhaar card Supreme Court judgment. It's again one of the best judgment. I will just share the just a minute. It's I'm not finding it. Okay, so but that's a case where a retired retired judge has put a case whether Aadhaar card is valid or not. In that judgment in 2018, the Supreme Court very clearly said that personal information is a fundamental right. Nobody can violate it. So my recording cannot be shared by anybody else without my permission. So that is the way it is. So now, even if the client records, it's a personal information, he cannot give it to anybody else. So it's a fundamental rights. It has been under the right to life and liberty plus privacy. That has been clearly told by the Supreme Court, and it clearly said that personal information cannot be shared, and it's a fundamental rights. So that is the case which can be considered very seriously. And then what we call it as, this is a beautiful 1400, I think, is the page, the judgment. So that I would rather, yeah, I got it. Yeah, this is the judgment. Hope you can see this. This is the Supreme Court judgment where it is Justice K. Puttaswamy versus Union of India. Please read this. This was in 2012, the case started and it was given, and it's a beautiful judgment talking about privacy. It talks about a lot of issues of privacy, how the biometrics have been taken. And finally, if you look at the judgment in the nutshell, they summarize telling that it's a fundamental rights. You cannot play around with the personal information. So that is the way it has been told, and that is the reason the Aadhaar card cannot be used for various purposes. Otherwise, we wanted to use for biometric when the patient gets admitted, to track the patients. Those are the things which we wanted to do, but the Supreme Court said that it cannot be done. So this is the way it's at this point of time. Just a minute. This is the conclusion what the Supreme Court has said. The requirement under the Aadhaar Act to give one's demographic biometric information does not violate fundamental rights of the privacy, but the provision of the Act, demographic biometric information from the resident of Aadhaar, is unconstitutional. It cannot be said unconstitutional. Collection of data is fine, but it cannot be shared. So that is the way it goes, and it says cannot be used for any other purposes. The government can collect, but it cannot be shared for anything else unless there is a law written for that to utilizing of that. So that is the way. That is the reason now there is a separate digital health ID will be generated now. Again, similar to Aadhaar card, National Health Authority has said about that. And the National Digital National Health Digital Reforms have been started, and it was passed only 2 weeks back. So that will be using a separate ID, a unique ID for across single person, wherever he goes, it can be utilized. But again, it is the consent of the patient is very essential. So I will stop here and we can take questions now.
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, Dr. Darpan has asked a lot of questions. So I'll be just sharing few questions if possible. So she's asked that, are there any modules to follow, session wise or subject wise, subject to clinical expertise? What documents to submit online post each session to client? And international guidelines recommend AV recording to be done by practitioners. So if light can be thrown on all the different questions.
And one more question of Darpan is there. There is a mention of some course in guidelines. What is the state of the same? So that completes the quota, I think.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Rajesh Nagpal.
Darpan sir, Darpan's question was required to be asked by both Amrit and Alim.
Yes,
Good.
they can answer them.
Amrit sir, please. Nagpal sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
There are so many questions anyway. Give me at least one question. I'll answer one, then you can answer the rest. Any one question.
Video recording can be done. That is the last question Alim asked, so I remember that.
Your recording can be done with the permission, but
Yeah,
only for the it's only with permission. That's it.
Yes, sir. The audio video recording is not mandatory, but if you are doing it, it has to be clearly written consent has to be taken from the client, and how you're going to destroy it, when it will be destroyed, where it will be stored. Those are the things you have to clearly mention. And better is you keep it with you, because if you are going to have a third party, suppose I'm going to have like Amrut is hosting a cloud tomorrow, and I'm telling I have an agreement with Amrut, that has to be disclosed to the patient. I've recorded this, but it will be in the cloud, which will be hosted by a third party, Amrut. If anything goes wrong, Amrut will be held responsible, not me. So those kind of third party has to be disclosed, or else if you are keeping within yourself, then you'll be liable. And again, the telemedicine practice guideline is very clear. Reasonable degree of care is required. It doesn't say 100%. If one of your worker comes and steals that and release it, you will not be held responsible. It clearly says the breach of technology, and you have done reasonable degree of care, you will not be held responsible. That is the telemedicine practice guideline. Under the law, it says that. So need not worry.
May I also suggest here, if you look at the Ashley Madison case, Tinder case, nothing is hack proof today. So I am always suggesting for telepsychotherapy in the Indian context to please maintain manual records yourself. Do not use electronic format. This is my personal preference only for very obvious reasons. If you look at Ashley Madison, what has happened, and the lives have been ruined because of that. No point. Sorry, Dr. Alim.
Yeah, sir, I was saying regarding this document keeping. So how should we document this therapy? What records should we make? And suppose if it is on my phone and I lose my phone, so what happens then? How to avoid such situations?
See, I was saying that if you're recording a psychotherapy session, please maintain longhand notes on a file. Do not maintain electronic format lest it be hacked. I am saying so much. If you use a Google Note, store it elsewhere on a separate device altogether, not in your mainframe, not on the phone itself. So you can maintain the longhand notes and start working just as you do in a psychotherapy session. And what we normally do in psychotherapy also, as we all know, is that once the session is over, we'll fill in the blanks. So we'll make small points and then we'll add on the stuff to it. That is required.
And so how long to store these documents? When can I destroy them?
I think the ethical guidelines speak about 3 years is the period. So that much is what we need to store them for. See, but basically what happens is that these guidelines are used for clinical purposes. So we might use them for the lifetime of the patient if we are in contact with the patient and keep them. But 3 years is
Our audio is decreasing.
Audio is low.
3 years is what the law requires to do, but I keep them for life.
Okay.
Pramod sir, would you like to respond, sir?
Yes. So what I'm saying that we must all know that it is the communication method which has changed. Nothing else has changed. You're doing psychotherapy instead of sitting across the table. Now you're doing psychotherapy online. Your standard clinical practice, whatever you were doing, you're talking to the person, you are making small notes, then you are keeping the big notes and keeping in the file, medical record. This is exactly what needs to be done. As far as this recording business, I think it is more of an apprehension. It generates great amount of apprehension. If I look at the number of people in India who are doing therapy, how many of us are recording actually sessions? When this Telangana case also came up, and it was a kind of a news that the sessions were actually being recorded on a video camera. But in most of the training places, the way we have been trained, the way I have been practicing, and many have been practicing, we do not record sessions directly. As far as patients are concerned, I have 2 patients of mine who take proper consent with me, and then they record the session. It is on, and this consent is also recorded on the device itself. We cannot stop anybody from recording a session. It is their right to record. But what I have observed and what I have got an experience over a period of time, many of us have a lot of apprehensions being recording. Reason being, we do not follow the exact amount of etiquettes during our counseling sessions. I have been reported by my clients, the therapists were casual, they were talking beyond therapy things, they were very personal, they were getting into things which were not a part of the therapy, and we have a tendency to address our patients casually. And that is something which Dr. Rajesh Nagpal has mentioned, that if it goes to the court, then your practice, the method of your practice can also be questioned. I think the best practice is always record. Like I run my clinic on my iPad. So it is like a prescription for me. Whenever I do a session I keep on making notes, and there is a backhand support on iCloud on that. The second question which was there about the confidentiality and missing of the data, it is very clearly mentioned in the telepsychiatry guidelines also. And even in digital health records in India, digital health, that all the cases related to confidentiality, breach of data and everything will be covered under Information Technology Act in India, 2012, I suppose. So whatever it is, whatever happens, it will be punishment, or everything has to be done according to that. And they have given a clear-cut guidelines how you should be maintaining records, how should be storing them, how should be transmitting them, and a reasonable care if you have taken, then there is no problem.
Sir, two questions are there from Dr. Rajnikant Shukla from Odisha, sir. One
Yes.
is,
Hello.
can a pre-session digital agreement like a NDA, non-disclosure agreement, take care of the various issues? And another question he has asked, or maybe it's a suggestion from him, why shouldn't the IPS push for a legal, coverage for the guidelines, that it should be legalized? So that, and I would add another part: can IPS keep a cloud service so that the registered psychiatrist or maybe the RCI keep a cloud service where our recordings might be stored and we might be prevented from further legal course? So that's the question, sir.
Nagpal sir, would you like to respond, sir?
No, Suresh, you can go on. Please go ahead.
Okay. See, one is maintaining a cloud server is not an easy business. It's very costly affair. You require huge amount of money, and server should be available in each city. See, though we say cloud means it's not a cloud. It also has a physical server. So it has everywhere, but the only thing is I'm not owning it. Somebody else is owning it and hosting it. It's not a simple business. It's a very huge business, and it's IPS can own it. If you have money, why not? But if the money is not there, it will be compromised. Let me be very clear. There is no server in the world which cannot be hacked. It can be hacked. So first is that one. I would like to go with Dr. Pramod and Dr. Rajesh Nagpal. We don't have a foolproof system. Do the therapy as online. Write the notes in the paper. Keep it in the paper.
Yes.
If you look at the guidelines also, if you look at the Mental Health Care Act, it's very clearly written. Let me share this. This is the telemedicine practice guideline. See, this has been told that you have to follow the 4.3b, that is the rule which clearly says that this is the guideline. The teletherapy notes has to be kept. Minimum basic guidelines for the documentation of the telecounseling. It's basically Appendix 3. This is as per the Mental Health Care Act. The Mental Health Care Act clearly says that as per the Mental Health Care Act, Section 25, specifies that a person with mental illness shall have the right to access their medical record, and the record has to be kept in this. This is the one-page notes. Please record this one-page notes. What is the problem in recording? Audio and video recording, it's in the gray area. Better to avoid that. And if you want to do it, take the consent. Whatever consent you take it, let it be agreeable on both the side. And if you are breaking, and once the contract is made, and on what terms the contract can be broken. Imagine if the person, you said that neither of you will release the information. If that person is involved in anti-legal or any illegal activity, you have to break the law. That has to be clearly disclosed in the contract. It can be doable, but at this point of time, I would rather say refrain from audio and video recording, which is not a norm in our country. Let's go slow, not be in a very aggressive manner. That would be my answer. Dr. Pramod and Dr. Nagpal sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Nagpal.
I have only suggested one thing for the appendix 3. You can add two things, I thought. One is I can add the fee component to, at least in private practice. And second thing I suggested was that mention that the possibility of confidentially getting breached is there. We need to document that possibility so the patient is alive to the concept that is not 100% proof. We will do our best to preserve concept. So these two aspects can be added to the appendix. That's what I am doing in my own practice.
Thank you, sir.
I think Gautam sir, Dr. Gautam Saha is there. He wants to make a comment. Gautam
Good
sir.
evening. Yeah. It was excellent presentation, Dr. Nagpal.
Sir.
We all know that he is a great academician.
Dada, you are not
only
audible.
academician, he is a very, very good organizational man. In fact, when I became the General Secretary of Indian Psychiatric Society, I tell so many people and to him also that I learned how to do his job as a secretary from Rajesh.
Sir.
And great, it is a three stalwart, Dr. Suresh Kumar and Dr. Pramod Kumar is there. Under and my two girls, a little smile, but my question is, if the patient is abroad, not abroad, patient is under my treatment, or goes to abroad for a few months of some job, is there any legal problem if we do telepsychiatry? Again.
Pramod sir.
You say you answer first, then I'll make a
You
comment.
have 2 decades of experience,
Yes,
sir.
yes. I'll tell you. It's like buying a MacBook from Dubai and bringing it into India, and where there is no warranty in India. So similarly, in telepsychiatry guidelines, the jurisdiction of telepsychiatry guidelines are India. But that doesn't say that you cannot talk to your patients. You cannot deliver psychotherapy to your patients internationally also. You can, people do approach us, and we have plenty of patients whom we are doing counseling sessions, sitting over here and helping them in there. And we maintain the complete records, register them in our clinic like an international patients. Okay. And if you, in India, there is a lot of patients who are coming from abroad. So similarly, delivering counseling to patients from any part of the world is a possibility. However, if anything goes wrong during the therapy, the patients have to be the patients since they're abroad. So the geographical jurisdiction doesn't have the boundaries, so US or UK. So they cannot file a case against you in any of those countries. But as far as your prescription goes, you should not be writing prescription for those patients.
Nagpal sir, would you like to add?
See, my sense is this is this is a recorded session, and I would like to go strictly by the law. If I, as a practitioner, am observing telepsychiatry guidelines and I'm an RMP, then I should not be doing teletherapy for my clients who are stationed abroad. Period.
I would I would rather put it in a different way. Indian laws are applicable to India. Simple. Like if there is Indian Penal Code, and if you are in Australia, Indian Penal Code will never apply to you. So it's in a very certain areas the law comes, like Reserve Bank or State Bank of India is working in Dubai, then some laws will be applicable. Otherwise, the jurisdiction of the law is very clear in India. It applies to India. Suppose if you want to do, it is your risk. It's a risk appetite. If you want to do, it is your risk. The issue, I'll give an example how it happens. Suppose I give what we call it as therapy for a Canadian patient. He was here in Bangalore and he is now shifted to Canada and he's settling there. I'm doing therapy or whatever, I've even given a medication, something goes wrong. He gives a complaint and there is no extradition treaty or anything, so they will not do anything. And we are unable to bring the people who are so corrupt with crores of money, we are unable to bring them, so nothing will happen. But the Canadian government can put a ban on me to travel to Canada. That's the possibility, maximum can happen. Otherwise, nothing will happen. So, but however, I would rather go with in the clinical spirit, I would be with Pramod. But as a lawyer, if you ask me, I would like to go with Rajesh Nagpal sir. That's the way I would like to put it across.
Suppose the patient
What I
comes
am
back
telling
and then
actually,
wants an attack on you.
I am telling the fact is one patient from UK. They used to form, and actually she wanted to treat from me only, and his parents are coming, and I wrote their own reporting and medicine prescribed before the telemedicine guideline came out. And then they purchase this medicine from here and send it to her abroad. So I don't know whether illegal or not, but after the publishing of the telemedicine guideline, I'm a bit confused whether I'll continue that or not.
See, there is one more twist I can give you. Imagine the patient is maybe in Canada or somewhere, but the family member comes to you for in-person consultation and you give the prescription to the patient's family here. And you talk to him over the telemedicine. Is it possible? See, these are all gray areas, basically. But however, these can be addressed again in the second edition of the telepsychiatry operational guidelines. See, why I am telling you this is, see, the government of India in 2019, we had a meeting, actually Ministry of Health and Family Welfare and Ministry of Commerce had a discussion over the medical tourism. It was a high level meeting. I was a part of the meeting. The NHS, you take the NHS, you take various countries, the waiting period is 3 to 6 months. In that period, why can't telemedicine can be utilized from the other country and why can't India start providing telemedicine? It is not far. In another 5 to 6 years down the line, India may have a MOU with various countries where there is a waiting period to meet the doctor is 3 to 6 months. They may say the doctors from India can provide telemedicine and this is the insurance will be provided to them. It is not far. And already as soon as the telemedicine practice guidelines was released on March, in April 1st or 2nd, there was a tweet from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Can we consider doctors from India providing services to other countries? Was the question asked.
Correct.
And it is still in the process and it is not far. Tomorrow we may open our health sector for various, because already we are very well known for health tourism in Delhi. It's a huge business if you ask me. Rajesh Nagpal can talk about this, the way the patients are bringing. Not only that, patients, especially chronic mentally ill, they want to keep them in India because it's cheaper here as a rehabilitation center. Nagpal sir, please.
Actually.
No, I completely agree.
And lastly, what Ranjan said, Dr. Ranjan Bhartias, that cloud from IPS, it is not possible. Actually, Ranjan, we discussed in our office bearer meeting and EC also regarding the software and cloud. It is from IPS. It is a very difficult job. We made once, and people are not using it very much. I think what Suresh said regarding telepsychiatry, to me also, I am using WhatsApp is the most user-friendly and encrypted and very safe.
Absolutely, sir.
But doctor,
I'll tell you.
yes, sir.
Nagpal sir, you wanted to say something.
Me?
Nagpal sir wanted to say something. So
No, I was just saying that there are about 23 agents in Delhi and Gurgaon who are providing international clients, but none of them are providing clients for psychiatry as yet.
No, people, you don't require agents for use yourself. See, the whole business
No,
of
no,
a
I'm not
medical...
talking about, I'm just talking about the corporate stuff. I'm not talking about,
Yes, yes.
my personal practice. I'm just saying that psychiatry is not figuring there. It will figure there eventually, and then we'll
Gradually, of course.
actually, sir, in Bangalore, it has become a very well known for cancer patients and even for mentally ill patients. They are housing in India because it's very cheaper. The understanding is between the Apollo Hospital, example I'm giving, not Apollo Hospital. There is one ex-hospital in Bangalore with the ex-hospital in the country, maybe UAE. So the doctor, if you are treating and sending him, the patient will go to the UAE hospital there, the doctor from there and doctor from here will again a collaborative meeting and they're providing services. It is beyond the boundary of law. From both the side, it is well understood, but he says, I'm talking to the expert and the prescription is given by the doctor from their country and it is well accepted. And it's because they also want the kind of this MOU between the two bigger hospitals. Who knows, tomorrow Dr. Rajesh Nagpal may have understanding with one of the hospital in UK and it can be done, because there are, even in Canada, because there are many Punjabis in Canada, and so the treatment can start, and it's not far. In another 10 years, this is going to revolutionize. We have to be on the toes, and we should use this digital technology.
Sir, that question, just add on to the previous question. Suppose the patient is abroad, his family members come to me, and I write a prescription. So I am doing something illegal or not? Or somewhere in between? This is a recorded session, so
Yes.
we can talk later on also.
No, it's everything we talk is assumed to be, is recorded and assumed to be, should be right way. Dr. Suresh, you want to say?
Yeah, this is the same, because this has been discussed in one of the IMA group. We discussed about the doctor who have been charged in the celebrity case who committed suicide. The sister went and asked the in proxy consultation. There was not even a telemedicine. The doctor did not talk to the patient, but he gave in proxy consultation. It happens in all chronic disorders. You take to a diabetes patient, hypertensive patient, tuberculosis, HIV, the family member, and even in psychiatry, 30% of a population, the family member will come and take the medicine. And this is one of the important, because to keep the adherence. If you make the stricter law, 30% will stop the medicine. Simple reason is they are going for work or some other reason. So here also the same thing, the doctor obliged to the family member. So here the issue comes is, if it was a telemedicine, it is very clear in telemedicine, you have to take an authorization letter. If it is in person, there is nothing is there in black and white, and there is no law to say that don't give a medicine to the family member at this point of time, unless the patient is a very sensitive information. If it is for diabetes, hypertension, it should not be a problem, because many times it happens. Father is sick, diabetic foot, the son will go and bring the medicine, which is well accepted in other fraternity. But in psychiatry, it is because of Mental Health Care Act, it's a very woolly at this point of time, because capacity assessment comes into a picture. If the patient is able to give a letter, authorization letter, my father will come and take the medicine, or it is written in the advance directive. This is one of the best of advance directive. The patient says that once I am improved, or when I am not improved, whatever is the situation, my father will come and take the medicine. Though the advance directive kicks when the patient loses his capacity. But even in the advance directive, you can get it written. That will play an important role. There, the family member can come and take the medicine. Why not? But however, it's a very gray area at this point of time, Dr. Salim. So in psychiatry, I don't have answer for that. But in medicine, on the other field, it is easy to deal the situation.
So would I be on a safer side if I say that when the family comes, they also bring an authorization letter from the patient who is you kindly bring a letter of authorization that my father or my brother or my sister will come, and I issue the medication, whether I talk to the patient or in proxy, and then they courier it to the patient. So that will be a safer option.
Yes, sir.
The issue is, I'll just comment. This is everyday situation with us.
Yes, actually, sir, it is.
Every day. It's everyday situation. Okay. First of all, number one, there is a patient. You should treat only those international patients whom you have actually treated, assessed, diagnosed, done the initial treatment in a physical form in India. Don't start treating anybody who has never visited your clinic. I'm talking about international patients only. Once you have done an initial work, work with those patients, and the person is from any part of the world and they want to go back, then you can prescribe and you can follow the online video consultation format, like as is being discussed. However, giving prescription to the family member, you should avoid. You should avoid it completely, because now in the digital format, you can write a prescription, you can send a prescription directly to the patients. Now comes the second part of your question, that is a medication. Now, procuring medicine on behalf of the patient, you are nowhere in between. You're nowhere in between. You have written a prescription, and the family want to buy medicine from wherever they want to buy medicines, and they want to courier. There is no law as a rule. The medicines cannot be couriered abroad. This is the kind of a understanding. But 90% of the medication, they reach to their patients. The family buy them, they take the bill, they courier through DT, they courier through the courier agencies, and they reaches. 4 or 5 times till date, and recent being just a month back, that in US, the medicine, one of my patients' family took the medicines from Chandigarh. The medicines in Chicago airport, they were stopped. They were stopped over there, and they were confiscated. And then they asked the family member for whom these medications are there, and the prescriptions were there with the person. I received a letter. They asked the family to, that I am the prescriber. They asked me to write some information about the patient. What is the condition? What for you have given this medication, for how long, and what is the treatment record of this patient? And the medicines were, within 3 days, the patient medicines were given back to the family by the courier agency themselves. But there are 3-4 incidences where the medicines could not reach. They just confiscated. Recent being in Germany with one of my patients. So that I don't get involved with that process at all, and you should not get involved with that process. Even if you have written a prescription, that is the primary objective as a psychiatrist which we have. Nothing beyond that. As far as counseling goes, when you are doing only counseling, my understanding, even the American Psychiatric Association guidelines is the jurisdiction may be within the state or within the country, but jurisdiction is only lawful if there is anything which goes wrong. But otherwise, delivering care within the clinical ethical guidelines norms, I don't think there is an issue with that. And I do it on a very, very regular basis. But I maintain every record of those patients on a regular basis. And only once I received a letter from the Foreign Exchange Bureau from Delhi, that one of my patients, when he transferred money from US, the money was consistently coming into my bank account. And they asked me that these dollars are being coming to your account. So what is the explanation for that? So I sent a letter to them explaining them, I sent them this is one of my patients and whom I'm delivering counseling services, and this is their fee structure, and these are the invoices. That's it. It solved the issue completely. So it didn't happen that way.
Sir.
Adding to Pramod sir, what has told, the US laws are very clear. It is 90 days is the medicine, or else the visa duration given. That is the amount they can carry the medicine, and strictly no for NDPS medicine. They will be jailed if they are carrying. That is the one, yes. Because it happened in one of the UAE patient. The patient from India went to UAE, I think it's one of the Arab countries, where the tramadol was given. Tramadol was a banned drug there. He was taken into custody. So please be careful with the NDPS drug. Even if you're giving, tell them if you're carrying those drugs, don't cross the border. If you cross the border, you will not be able to say whatever certificate you give, they will not accept.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That is the one thing. Yes,
sir, Dr. Pramod sir, you can share our bank account also with them, because we need few dollars also. So, one question which we just yes. touched and went away is suicide and telepsychotherapy, sir.
Yes.
Because a lot of people are, harnessing their skills or showcasing their skills in suicide prevention, crisis management, spending hours with patients in acute crisis. Maybe I have heard of counselors, psychologists spending hours. Maybe sometimes we need to deal with a patient where we have to spend maybe a couple of hours, 3 hours. Documentation, how we should protect ourselves and how we should protect our clients. Your take, all the 3 members.
So who want to answer that?
Okay. Nagpal sir, go ahead.
Or Nagpal sir.
See, my take is this, that for a psychiatrist, dealing with suicide is generally for a borderline patient. The depressed patient, of course, is very unlikely. The borderline patient, if you're doing DBT and somebody comes for suicide, please discontinue the digital format and please have a face-to-face format, because that is highly unpredictable. Similarly, we do not do digital therapy for schizophrenia, where the suicide risk is very high, 10%. So there also, if there is the slightest risk, please discontinue. Only if there are suicidal kind of gestures and ideas in adolescent children, you might conduct the therapy with provision. So my sense is suicide is not something that should be done in the digital format as far as possible. Once the possibility arises, shift to the face-to-face format straight away. This is my simple advice. The rest, of course. And this is also part of the guidelines also.
Okay. So let me tell you one clear thing. See, telemedicine practice guideline is very clear. Emergency situation, refer the patient to the nearest RMP. That's what the telemedicine guidelines is very clear. So don't engage a patient who is what we call it as suicidal. If he's suicidal, the very important is telemedicine practice guidelines from the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare is very clear. It says that do counseling and give him a referral. Hello, ask him to go to the nearest RMP. That is the wording has been very clear. That is for a doctor. Clinical psychologist, there is no guideline as per the RCI, legally binding. But the guideline which is released is from the NIMANS. It is a clinical guidelines for clinical psychologists from the Department of Clinical Psychology. RCI has not made it mandate. So they can do online therapy or phone. If imagine tomorrow, like Dr. I think in West Bengal, they did a very good job during the lockdown. They were doing the online counseling. So when they discussed, I told them not to give medication over the phone. The reason being is let us use it as a helpline only. Though it comes under the telemedicine, here it is only counseling. And whenever the patient is suicidal, you say, please, you have to go and so person and meet so and so person or the RMP, go to the nearest hospital and stop the therapy at that point of time. That is very essential, and document it telling that as per telemedicine practice guideline, the person is suicidal. Hence, I had referred him to, since the patient was from Lucknow, I sent him to go and meet either Alim Siddiqui or the IPS president, go and meet them, or Adarsh Tripathi. The three options were given, and he was referred on this date, and the session was aborted, full stop.
Suresh, I will jut in now. If somebody is your patient, he's in lockdown, he's in an apartment staying where nobody is allowed to go out, nobody is allowed to come in. The kid, or maybe a 21-year-old guy, has lost his mother by COVID. He's not able to go. He's feeling guilty. He's suicidal, and he has contacted you. His father is sitting beside him. They are contacting. He's absolutely suicidal. The father is also not in the condition to control him or stop him. Now, just because the patient is suicidal, and will you stop the therapy there? And if something happens, won't you be liable for that? Are we trying to protect ourselves always, or we will try to protect our client with the expressed thing that yes, if something happens, I am protected? That is more important than rubbing my hands off it and telling that you go anywhere when there is nothing in sight. They've contacted Suresh Badamat, the number one psychiatrist in Imams, and Suresh is telling, no, I want to protect myself. You go and run away to anywhere. I think no court of law. Can we stand in a court of law and tell that no? Can we justify ourselves or defend ourselves?
Okay, Amrut, it's a very interesting question you have asked. Let me answer you in a different way. It's not the right way to answer, but I'll answer. Imagine I'll twist the case what you said. Imagine father has an MI and he's calling you. What shall you do? The patient is fine, but the father has MI. What will you do?
Yes.
It is quarantine. Nobody is allowed to go. What will you do? It is an emergency. MI.
I'll answer you now. If there is oxygen supply, if the injections are properly there, if there is a defibrillator, and he cannot go, I'll tell defibrillate this.
In a home, man, not in a nursing home, Dr. Amrut.
Yes, but
so suicide is an emergency. The guideline is very clear. Don't engage the patient who is severely suicidal. Let's be very clear about that.
So he's going to jump. We'll tell him to jump.
No, I'm not going to tell jump. I'm telling counseling and referring him. Nobody will say jump, Amrut. Don't what we call it as extrapolate it. I'm telling you what does the guideline says legally. Okay, clinically you do whatever you want. That's fine. But in the court of law, I'm talking if the judge is sitting there, on the other hand, you have done the counseling and the patient dies in the night. He commits suicide. And the father will say the doctor should have referred him to a psychiatrist. And the doctor did a counseling and he committed suicide in the house. What will you do? And the father will show telemedicine guidelines says that he should have referred to an RMP. He did not do that. And
shouldn't
the same
guidelines
doctor
be
who is
changed?
sitting, Nagpal or me, I will say, yes, this is a definitely contravention of the telemedicine guideline.
So there is a deficit in the telemedicine guideline which should be plugged.
Yes, every law has a loophole. Yes, every law has a
I'll tell you. I'll give you, I'll just jump in. Sir, 3 days back, I'll tell you, absolutely similar scenario. 3 days back, I get a call and it's about 8 o'clock when I was about to finish a clinic. And this call came from Mumbai. And there was a young girl who wanted an online consultation on an emergency basis. She called up, she looked at my website, she was referred by somebody and she's an actress, I'm telling you. Okay. And this girl talk to my reception for an appointment, because my appointment for telemedicine goes exactly the same way like a normal OPD. They have to be registered, they have to pay in advance, they have been explained everything about how the teleconsultation take place. And once the registration, then I screen whether this person is a fit or not. Now I talk to this girl and she said, this is an emergency, I need a consultation immediately. At about 8:30, I talked to this girl. She says, since 8th of March, this girl has not moved out of her apartment till she was talking to me out of corona phobia. And she was living alone over there. She did not allow anybody to come in, go out, and to the extent that she started to become depressed and suicidal. And she says, life is, what is this life? Everybody is committing suicide. So why not me as well? Now, when I talked to her, I did the assessment. My first take on her was that, see, miss, as of now, your clinical condition does not permit me to deliver the services of counseling with you. What you need immediately is that you should be seeking physical consultation with a psychiatrist as soon as possible, because this is an emergency, it's a psychiatric emergency. And I can hear you, but I may not be able to help you at this particular stage. And according to my understanding, my clinical wisdom and my guidelines, this is a psychiatry emergency and you should be seeking a physical consultation on an immediate basis. She says, I cannot move out of my apartment because then I'll get the COVID. Then my counseling shifted on COVID, that people are moving out, this and that, this is how what we do. And I can tell you, I was assertive enough to tell her that I cannot help her at this stage other than just listening to her. Today she called me. She made the first appointment. After she talked to me for half an hour, she made an appointment with a psychiatrist in Mumbai. She met him in the morning today, and at 2 o'clock, she told me that you have guided me properly. I'm being put on medication for their purposes. I strongly believe digital psychiatry is not for every psychiatrist to deliver. It is not for every patient to take it. And it is not, every patient means, and then it is not for every diagnosis which the person has. It is a limited domain for limited people, and we should deliver exactly as we can deliver. We should never overreach our boundaries. The problem comes only then, because as a psychiatrist, we tend to empathize more, we tend to sympathize more. We start believing that, oh, this person cannot go out. What will he do? How can he take help? There is nobody around her. When I told her, she called up her friend also visited, who took her to the hospital. Had I not counseled her, given her proper referral, proper advice, I don't know what it would have happened. So be very clear, follow the guidelines very strictly, very, very strictly. And that is how we are going to help the society.
I think that is wonderfully explained.
Alim sir, and also the Amrut, I'll take it further. Okay. Suppose you said, as Dr. Suresh has said, I can't help you, and the patient committed suicide. Will you be charged under abatement? There is no possibility. Abatement cannot be done. Abatement is very clear. Supreme Court judgment, one after the other, they have told abatement has 3 important criteria.
Yes.
IPC section 107 and 109. They are clearly said abatement has 3 important. One is physical proximity should be there. That means you have to be physically proximity. There should be motivation for pushing somebody to commit suicide, and there should be an instigation to do it. So if it is not provable, it cannot stand in the court of law. There was one of the case which occurred, I think, in the West Bengal. A young girl was, she's artist. Her, what we call it, his father, she wanted to learn English. They brought an English teacher. The English teacher and this girl fell in love. They started loving each other, and finally they decided to get married. The boy takes the girl to her parents' house. In the parents' house, there is a fight. The parents call her as a call girl. You are a call girl. Why should I give my son? This girl becomes upset, goes back home, writes a detailed suicide note telling that my boyfriend's parents insulted me calling as a call girl, and they are responsible for my suicide, and she commits suicide. This case went to Supreme Court, and the court was very clearly said that just because somebody called a call girl doesn't mean it is an abatement, even if there is a suicidal note. It cannot abate. It cannot be considered as abatement. It is a matter of just an argument, fight. There was no intention. There was no motivation. It is a fit of anger they had fought, and it does not stand the section 107 IPC for an abatement.
Yes.
So that will not hold in the court of law. Please understand about this. This is one case. Another case which occurred in the Amritsar actually. There, I think Guru Govind University, again in law college it happened. There was an exam, something was conducted. Mahajan is one of the person after once the exam is conducted, when they're coming outside, there is a mobile phone is missing there. So 2 students were accused. Both were law students. One of them was very sensitive. So both were taken to the HOD. They were asked to give in writing what happened. Then one of the boys said, I don't know anything. I came outside. The security guard caught me. I have nothing to do with the mobile phone. The other person also wrote the same thing. And then the HOD does it. What he does is he gives it to the security officer for further investigation. Both were suspended. The 3 days later, this young boy Mahajan, what he does is he writes again a detailed suicidal note, names the HOD, names the security officer, names the other boy who is there, and he jumps in front of the running train and he dies himself. This was a ruckus created in the Amritsar. Again, in that case also, Supreme Court clearly said that this boy is very sensitive. Just because he has written a suicide note doesn't mean that it is an abatement. The security guard, the HOD, and the other boy was allowed to go away. The reason is the person who is pushed to suicide should use all possible mechanisms of what we call it as redressal mechanism. Here, just it was an investigation started. For example, tomorrow, yes, if you are seeing a patient, if you are a medical college professor and you are telling MD student, submit your thesis, otherwise you will not give you extension. The student says, if you don't give extension, I'll commit suicide. Will you give extension? If you don't pass me in the exam, I will commit suicide. Will you pass them? If you give me more cases, I will commit suicide. They are all administrative issues that cannot be confused with the abatement of suicide. So please do understand that abatement cannot be pushed under section 306 IPC, which is read under section 107 and 109 cannot stand. So that's, please understand, without knowing the law, one. And the other issue is we are interpreting the medical ethics, which is 500 BC old. Unnecessary we bring those ethics. Please follow the law. And I respect you, Amrut. You are emotional, fine. You go ahead and help. But the law stands first, then the ethics comes. Ethics is very old, law is recent. That is
just let me have an add-on question. So most of us are doing sessions on WhatsApp. Now, next day when I open the WhatsApp, there is a note that so-and-so patient is getting crazy. She or he will commit suicide. So there is no other engagement, no other form of communication or engagement, just a message is in my inbox. So what should be my next step?
Dr. Nagpal sir, would you like to respond?
If the patient is already under our care and he or she has texted, that amounts to a consultation, we need to respond to the consultation
appropriately. Respond, because we receive these questions. So you just respond to them appropriately, whatever your clinical wisdom says, write them. And I do one thing. When I start with these patients online, I tell them in the beginning, because this is not something which is casual. Telepsychiatry is much more is a much more responsible job. It carries lot of liabilities, and I tell my patients, so it is only during the session I'll address your issues. It is not like every day that they will keep on sending messages and they expect you to answer all their questions every day. And I propose to them, if you want to have a question consultation, each question costs you 300 rupees. I'm telling you, and this is what I charge as well. I'll tell you this doubts.
Yeah.
You write down your questions. If it is not a very serious emergency, and when you discuss in your session, that is the time when you should be. I should be answering. I'm not answerable to each and every question which comes on each and every day.
Yeah, I would like to add.
Alim,
if it is your new case, you need not respond. If it is your old case, you can take the prerogative, just respond telling that you need to go and meet the RMP at the earliest. Yeah.
Yes.
Second one, I'll come to that. What Dr. Pramod mentioned, that suddenly clicked to me. we were reviewing the telepsychiatry guidelines. It is very clearly written in American Medical Association, a email sent which has 10 to 20 pages, and it takes around 30 minutes or 20 minutes to read those email because they have sent attachments, maybe old attachments, everything. This is a common in US. They send it. If you are taking that email, you have not spoken to the patient, that email has come, you are taken 10, 20 minutes, that is insurance gives the reimbursement. Even for email, forget about the audio call. Audio call is also, if you cross 5 minutes, this is the amount which is paid by the insurance. Tomorrow, even there is already discussion occurring with IRDA, that is Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, whether can this telemedicine, both email, audio call, video call can be charged. There has been a discussion, only video call has been there. We have tried to say that no, it has to be both. Even the digital, whatever they send, maybe 10 pages, 20 pages, those, if I'm taking 30 minutes, 20 minutes to give an opinion, it has to be chargeable. That's what we have said.
Yes, I do that. In fact, to the extent, recently I received two cases assessment from Manchester court. From UK, there were two patients who had an accident there. They were traveling, and then they had accident, and there was a case which was filed and for compensation. So there was one assessment done in UK, and then they says the UK doctor did not understand about this thing. So the advocate approached me from UK, and they gone through my profile, and then they says, okay, we want to get an assessment done over here. And I did the assessment for them, and I charged 3.5 lakh per case. Because why not? Because this is the per minute. Every minute I spent on reading the document, there were 450 pages of documents. I spent that much of amount of time. Per minute I charge them. And each case I charge 3.5 lakh rupees. And it says if I want to go to the court, I said these are my preconditions: business class travel, my per day loss of 1 lakh rupees a day, and then my hospitality and everything is to be paid by the company, by the insurance. Because this is how everything, like in US, many patients, they send us lot of papers work, and then they expect us to read. Then I ask them, okay, these are the pages, you have to pay them.
So, sir, coming back to my question, if it is a new patient, I have not had any contact, and I just get a message. So no need to respond to that.
Ignore.
Even if the note says that I'm wanting to commit suicide, no need to respond.
Ignore.
If it is you have to deliver telepsychiatry only to your registered patients. At the max, what you can respond to that message is, please consult the psychiatrist in your as soon as possible, at the max. Otherwise, there is no liability for you to respond.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. I think we are.
There are many questions running one after the other.
I think we are running. It's 9:30.
Yes, sir.
We have time if chairpersons and speaker allow.
Another 2-3 questions. Another 2-3 questions. Can we take, sir?
Yes. Go ahead.
As long as chairpersons and speaker are agreeable, we can proceed. And because there are many questions from all sides also.
We can. Okay.
How long you can be here with us, Pramod?
10 minutes.
Rajesh, and 10 minutes.
Then 2 more questions, and then we'll close it, sir.
Then we will go for closing.
Closing, sir.
And
Closing remarks.
you ask from chat questions. I shall raise some issues when I conclude. Yeah.
Sir, you take up, because sir has 10 minutes, then the closing will take 5 minutes. So you ask your question. I think we have enough for a day.
I have got many issues. I am going to raise one issue. This telemedicine guideline of Government of India mentions it is meant for RMPs under IMC Act 1956. This is the statement. And in this, where do the clinical psychologists come? Either they need not follow it, or there has to be some mention for them. They need not, because there is no guideline for them. They are doing what they are doing. They can do it by telemedicine, teleconsultation, anything, because there is no rider or guideline for them. But the scope clearly mentions the guidelines are meant for RMPs under the IMC Act 1956. Not even it refers to Mental Health Care Act, who are the mental health professionals. That also it does not refer to. We cannot impose it upon that. This question is particularly aimed at Rajesh and Suresh. Next question is what about up psychotherapy? What is its legal status? And it is pervading the market, it is getting numerous, many patients are coming with that we had taken this session, it did not help, but it helped. Why don't you do like that? That is there available on net. And what is the legal status? If there is no legal status, it has to be taken out. Third thing, my comment on about practicing with patients who are abroad. What we do, what I do, when their family members come, I write a prescription for them. What they do with that is their business. And always compel that if your child is coming twice a year, he must visit me first. That is all. I don't know where he is. You are coming and reporting. You tell USA, I am not going to see. You are taking the consultation because proxy consultation we have to accept in our setup, because from many villages, one person comes with 3 old prescriptions. We cannot give writers and then we cannot help you, because if you don't help them, they don't take medicines. Even if you prescribe, they may not take medicines, but if you don't help them, you are discontinuing their medications. These are the 3 comments. 2 questions. What about status of the clinical psychologist? They are not included in this act.
I have already stated that very clearly, that according to the law, current law, clinical psychologists, whether RCA approved or not, are not entitled to practice teletherapy because they are not RMPs. The NIMANS guideline is only a guideline. It has no legal status. So as of today, all the websites offering these from these young girls or young men is actually, to my mind, outside the law.
So my submission to this, Rajesh, will be that before telemedicine came in March 2020, many of us are also practicing telemedicine. There was no guideline.
Yes, sir.
So if there is no guideline for telepsychotherapy, why cannot they practice?
So there is a guide. See, you are regulating a service. You're not regulating the RMP.
Yeah.
The service is not regulated. So service is about teletherapy. So teletherapy is regulated for Unani, homeopathy, Siddha, and allopathy.
Okay, I'll respond to that, sir. First,
it is telemedicine guidelines.
Yeah, right, sir. I'll respond to your question.
Teletherapy, it is clearly telemedicine guideline.
Yeah, wait, sir. I'll respond to that question. It's simple, sir. If the telemedicine practice guideline is only for RMP, full stop.
Yes.
Now the question comes is, clinical psychologist, can they practice psychotherapy? There is no law barring them.
Yes, that is my point. Very clear.
Yeah. When there is no law, it is not regulated. Full stop. It is open market. That is the way. For example, I will give you. There is no law to say roti cannot be eaten. So everybody can eat roti. Tomorrow, if there is a law telling that roti is banned, or everybody will eat only 2 rotis, then we have to. Then the market becomes regulated.
Correct.
So now that is the psychologist. I'll come to psychiatric social worker. They are not under RCI. They are not under MCI. They are not under any regulatory mechanism actually at this point. So psychiatric social work I'm talking about. They now, see, we formed our regulation so that we are protected by the guidelines if something goes wrong. That is with our own apprehension. And till date, I am telling you, one of my professor, Ramakrishna sir in National Law School said that if you want to be clinically independent professional, don't have any laws. You will be clinically independent. You can work with your complete freedom, and the complete clinical acumen can be used. Like in US, for everything there is a legislation. If you write olanzapine for a schizophrenia, you have to justify why it is not risperidone, why olanzapine is written. Because there is guidelines clearly written when to write risperidone, when to write olanzapine. Otherwise, insurance company will say he has written olanzapine, he should have written risperidone. We will cancel that insurance. That is the way the regulation is there. Since it is not regulated here to that level, we have a complete clinical freedom. So here now the clinical psychologists have a complete clinical freedom to do therapy because it is not regulated. Similarly, psychiatric social worker, they don't have even a counseling body to regulate them. Now there is most probably the allied medical professional bill is pending in the parliament. It may be passed sometime. So in that they may come into the picture. But it's still in a debatable issue. But at this point of time, they can practice because there is no law banning that. There is no law to regulate them. Only clinical guidelines from the NIMANS clinical psychology department. That is the only thing.
I have a small difference of opinion here, sir.
Yes, sir, please
I
go ahead.
personally feel that it is a service which is being regulated. If it was not true, then why have a separate compendium for homeopathy, Unani, Ayurveda? It's a copy-paste thing, sir. Sir, my submission is that it is the teletherapy in telemedicine which is being regulated. It is not the RMP. It so happens that teletherapy has to be administered only by an RMP. It is an act of omission or commission, we do not know. But as of today, teletherapy or digital therapy is to be practiced only by RMP, whether Ayurveda, Unani, Siddha, or this. A clinical psychologist cannot practice teletherapy within what teletherapy is defined as for teleprint guidelines. So the counseling that is done everywhere is for wellness. I mentioned in the beginning itself that I am talking about tele-psychotherapy, which is Rogerian medicine, Rogerian therapy, REBT, CBT, DBT. I am not talking about the counseling, wellness, chill man, you get fine man, be happy man. No, that's not again therapy. So that telepsychotherapy is essentially regulated to my mind. I'm sorry to take a contrary stand.
Sir, telemedicine guidelines are for RMP only, not for engineers, not for clinical psychologists, not for bus drivers. So telemedicine guidelines will cover us only. It is regulating us only, and Dr. Suresh is responsible for that.
Now, let me put it very clearly, Alim. Tomorrow, if somebody gives a counseling or whatever you can call it, as CBT, RET, something he does over the phone, he may be engineer also who has undergone training somewhere, does it. There is no law to ban it. Let's be very clear about that. Apart from Mental Health Care Act, if it says that you cannot cross over the profession, that is the only thing it says in, I think, section 116 or 115, which 115 is for suicide. I think 114 or 106, the professional jurisdiction, what they mention. Apart from that, if there is no law, you cannot regulate it. See, you can punish a person when there is a law. Without law, you cannot punish. Let's be very, very clear about that. There should be a law telling that nobody can practice. Then only it will prevail. Otherwise, it says it is applicable only for RMP, means RMPs are applicable, but other people can do whatever they want. That is the way it is.
Yeah, what Rajesh sir is saying, that service is regulated. Sir, service is not regulated. Service by RMP is regulated in the telemedicine guideline.
Yes.
Service by RMP is regulated.
Yes.
Service by others is not regulated.
Yeah, of course. There is a case which has gone to MCI telling that somebody had given a therapy by clinical psychologist. It came to us for opinion because of Professor B.N. Gangadhar is the ethics committee chairperson. It said that some clinical psychologist did the therapy and that something gone wrong, put a case on the clinical psychologist. This is the same suicide case, celebrity suicide case. Somebody had come to the media. It went to MCI. MCI said, we don't regulate clinical psychologists. The case fell down. Then it was shifted to RCI. So RCI will look into that. So that is the way it goes. And RCI don't have any guidelines at this point of time.
No, but Suresh,
yeah,
I have a question like this. See, suppose there is a clinical psychologist, she has done a telecounseling. They're doing telecounseling. Now the case has gone wrong. The client filed a case in the court. What my understanding says, the first thing which a judge is going to ask is, are you qualified to do a therapy? Okay, clinical psychologists are qualified to do a therapy. Then are you, whatever the telemedicine guidelines says, that within those guidelines, because that is the only guideline which are regulating telecounseling. She has done a telecounseling. So in that case, where the clinical psychologist, I think she will not fulfill the definition of a service provider. Because service provider in telepsychiatry, telemedicine is clearly defined. These are the people who can do teleconsultations.
Okay. Coming back.
So my question, if the question number second comes, for example, this case which has happened where 10 years imprisonment, life imprisonment is given to a couple for doing a cesarean section, being the Ayurveda. There were two Ayurveda doctors who have done a cesarean section, and the lady died, and they are being given life imprisonment. The issue is because you are not qualified enough. You have not done a training, you are not qualified. Over here, the qualification is there, but the kind of a therapy which you are doing, which is being regulated by the telemedicine guidelines, telepsychiatry guidelines, how this lady is going to fit in there?
Yeah, let me make it very clear again. See, these whatever telemedicine guidelines, what is the maximum punishment? Removing your name from the registry. That's it. There is nothing else. So when the clinical psychologist not is there in, they are not in the MCI. So how the MCI will regulate them? Full stop. See, MCI, their function starts by registration. Their function ends by removing the name. Full stop. Now
I'm
comes
talking about the law.
no,
Code.
I'll come
Yes,
to that, sir.
yes.
First is
Code.
telemedicine guidelines. I'm talking. Finished. That telemedicine guideline understood. It is only registration, removing your name, removing your entering your name. That is the removal of your license for to practice. That is telemedicine. If it goes to consumer court, they will fulfill the criteria for service provider. And if there is professional deficiency of providing services, that is basically if there is a clear cut, there is a what is the duty of care was there, and there was a breach of duty of care. Because of breach, there is a what we call it as damage has occurred, and which was clearly related to the breach, then the compensation will be given, even if it is a civil court. And if it is a gross negligence, criminal case can be put. The criminal case, the gross negligence comes under section IPC 304A, where it clearly says there should be a motivation to that extent that the gross negligence. That has been applied 304A for 10 years imprisonment, where they have been trained in Ayurveda to provide certain services, not to enter into here. They knew if I do something, the person may die because I'm not qualified. So the court considered it as a gross negligence in that situation. If they did not give criminal case, but they had given a civil case, they would have given 10 lakhs or 10 crores or 12 crores. So it depends upon where they're approaching. So that's the way it is. Like you said that they are not mandated, they are not been guided by MCI. What can MCI do? MCI will put the name, remove the name. That's it. They can't give a punishment. Nothing can be done. They have only that much power. Put the name, remove the name. That's it. Civil court, money. Criminal court, punishment. So that is the way it goes. So
no, but in that case, that damage, whether it is done by a psychologist or by a psychiatrist, it doesn't make any difference because it's a damage related. What you are saying, the punishment.
Where you are approaching for the
readdressal,
yes.
Where the readdressal you are approaching, that makes a difference. Imagine if they approach Human Rights Commission. What the Human Rights Commission will do? They will investigate, they will proceed, they will give it to the district court. Please proceed with the further. Whether the
let me add, if a psychiatrist causes damage, this telemedicine guidelines would be in the order of things. If a clinical psychologist or a social worker causes damage, this telemedicine guidelines is not in the mix of things. They will be judged separately.
It will not regulate.
Yeah, that is not related. I think we are mixing the two issues. So because we have made a law to save ourselves, we have also slightly screwed ourselves also.
Yes.
May I jump in?
Okay,
I agree to what has been told by Suresh and Nalim, because the scope of the law, its guidelines itself tells these guidelines are designed to serve as an aid and tool to enable RMPs. The guidelines are meant for RMPs under IMC Act 1956. Over ends. So it does not include others. And it does not tell that others cannot practice teleconsultation. And teleconsultation is not the name of the guideline, it is telemedicine.
Yes.
And obviously, clinical psychologists can never write medicines.
Sir, sir, I have to leave for...
Sir, we'll end it. We'll end it now.
Yes.
5 more minutes.
Somebody is waiting actually since... Okay.
We are waiting for you, na?
Sir, his girlfriend is waiting, sir.
Sir, there was one question. There was just last question by Dr. Sazia Siddiqui. Is it ethical to block a patient? So just the last question, and then we'll end it. Otherwise, Alim will not have dinner tonight.
Okay, I'll tell you. I have blocked one patient. Till date in therapy, I have blocked one patient. I have taken her off my treatment actually, and this was because of the indecency, I would say, from her. Because okay, so you have the right, private practitioners, when you are doing, you have a right to choose your patient, you have right to deliver service, and you have a right to terminate the services. So you, with following that, you can do that. So you have to, but you have to explain to the person why you are doing that. You can do that.
Amrita, I will put it in a different way. You are highly clinical and ethical oriented. Why not your phone number given to every patient in Orissa?
We don't give.
We give, no. Because you are highly saving everybody's life. So give your number so that you can attend to everybody in Orissa whenever they call. So it's basically the prerogative. Somewhere the rights of the patient, rights of the doctor. Rights of the doctor have not been enumerated, but at least in telemedicine practice guideline, rights of the patient, rights of the doctors have been very beautifully written, telling that you have a right to refuse patient. You can say you have to come in person. They have been very well documented.
Yes, that is it.
Tofan sir,
Yes.
ending last lines and then I will give the thanks.
So this has been a very marvelous interaction. I would have loved if all would have been there for half an hour more. But time is not there. Time is a constant. We may again be on this platform sometime with this topic. I ask Amrit to please make the closure. And I thank everyone, including Amrit, Alim, our chairpersons, our esteemed speaker, and the girls behind all these scenes who are doing a lot for us to coordinate, as well as Torrent Pharma for successful Thursday musings. Thank you. And with this, I hand over to Amrit.
Thank you, Tofan sir. I, on behalf of the IPS Odisha State Branch, who are supporting this Thursday Musings program, would like first of all to thank Dr. Rajesh Nagbal sir. So you were wonderful. It was so magnanimous of you to cede space to Suresh sir and Pramod sir. Everybody needed more time to speak. You asked for, you gave more time for them to speak. That is highly appreciated, and it is a wonderful thing, sir. Dr. Pramod Kumar, who bills himself per second, spent maybe around 60,000 or 6,000 seconds. If we calculate, it will be the total practice we all together do here. So thank you. Sir.
Bill will be coming to you.
Thank you, Pramod sir. And the ever helpful, the one of the best persons. If you need something, Suresh, you have a problem, you call him up. He's always there. You call him for party, he might refuse. But if you need him, Suresh is always there. And a recent change in his structure, well gelled, black shirt, perfect. Thank you, Suresh. It was lovely hearing all the three of you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Tufan sir, for allowing us to behave the way I and Alim do. He's absolutely always tries to take all the importance, and I always try not to give him that much of importance. Thank you, sir. Thank you, all the participants. You have been wonderful. 3 or 4 people have been hammering questions, like it was like ragging, So thank you, everybody, for your great participation. Thank you, Torrent. And thank you to 3 wonderful ladies. I would want to take their names, Dr. Sazia, Dr. Rucha, and Dr. Sharda, who have been the backroom people. Thank you, Odisha State Branch. Thank you, Pavan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pramod sir.
Wonderful interaction. One of the best interactions we had. One of the best interactions we had ever had. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks each one of you. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Good night. Good night. Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Pavan, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Good night, everyone. I'll close the meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you.